everyone, welcome back to Basic Brass Maintenance Techniques. Today we're going to talk about valves. Valves are your friend. And I break these down, you're going to understand them, and you're going to understand how to lubricate them and keep them working in proper order. There's two words that you have to understand when it comes to valves. Conical, cylindrical. Conical, cylindrical. And when you all get together and you're going to do a little class action, it's going to be name the members of the brass family that fall under the category of conical and cylindrical. Now, when it comes to conical, you're going to find primarily rotaries on French horns, tubas, and some trombones. So let's explore the rotor on the conical instruments. Just happen to have a rotor right here. Look at that. These are all the parts. And if you could see, like right there, I'll turn this and you could see now it's closed. There we go. Now we've engaged the rotor. Now I'll turn it this way and you can see right through it. See right through it. There we go. And now it's open. Now it's closed. So essentially what happens here is you have a stop arm, and there's a stop arm plate right here, and it allows this to move back and forth, opening and closing. You can see that very well there. So let's just look at the parts, and I'm going to show you exactly how to oil these. The places that you want to oil this rotor are what we call the main bearing or metal on what metal areas. So the place that you're going to want to oil is going to be right in here, and I'll explain to you why. And then the cap on the back comes off, and then you're going to want to oil right here. And when we call that the bearing surface, metal on metal, that's where oil needs to be. So right there, take the cap off, and then right there. So let's look at the parts of the rotor. We have the stop arm screw, which I'm going to remove. Now I understand if you're uncomfortable taking stuff apart, then don't do this. But if you feel comfortable about it, remove the screw. This is the stop arm. Once again, you can see the rotor moving around in there. Remove the stop arm. It's pressed on there. We'll just pop that off. And we'll pop that off. There we go. And now you're saying to yourself, okay, well, how is that rotor kept in there? It is kept in there with this back bearing right here that is pressed on. So back to our rawhide hammer and tap that. And you'll notice that came off, that's pressed on, and voila, there's your rotor. And the two areas that you're going to want to lubricate are going to be this area right here, right there. Because that metal touches the metal inside of the casing. There we go, right there. And that's where you're going to want to have some lubrication. And the other area where you have metal on metal in the rotor is going to be right there. Let's get there. So there you go, right there. And of course, the back bearing, boop, is going to fit on there. And so it spins. And so that's where you're going to have metal on metal. That's where you're going to need some lubrication. And I'd recommend using synthetics. This one in particular is made by the Hetman Company. It's designed for bearing and linkage. And it comes in such a way that it has a little dropper. So it makes it very easy to get little drops of oil right where they need to be. So that is the basic components of your rotor. And again, if you want to take this all apart, this would fit back in here. And then here's kind of a crucial moment here, and that is you're going to want to find, there's a little notch. And that little notch is going to have to line up. And you can see it right there. There's a little notch, and there's a little notch. And now you can see that they're lined up. Right there. They're lined up. And we would put our cap back on. There we go. And like so. Tap it on. Turn. Tap. Turn. Tap. Going to put our stop arm back on. Boom, just like that. And of course, the stop arm screw that holds it in place. Now, I'm showing you a tuba rotor. Allow me to show you what things look like on the French horn. Just happen to have one right here. And you can see right there, there's the rotor. Right there would be the screw that I just removed and put back on. See how the linkage is strong? That'll be discussed, I'm sure, in masterclass. And if you're saying, okay, well, Mr. Kashnik, where do I, oh, there, that's the place. I have to remove that. Look at that. That comes off, just like so. And where am I going to put the oil? Well, just like the other rotor, you're going to be putting the oil right there. One little drop. So if you don't feel comfortable taking everything apart, that's okay. You now know how to oil the rotors. Good reference, if you find this fascinating, is The Essential Guide to French Horn Maintenance, right there, by Glenn Perry. That is a really good source of information if you find this stuff fascinating. Very nice. Now we move on to the piston. Pistons are going to be found on a lot of tubas, primarily trumpets, and every once in a while a unique French horn might have pistons. The piston held in the casing by this little cap right here, screwed on. I will unscrew this and remove the piston from the trumpet. Just like so. And there's your piston. Parts of the piston: the button, that's screwed on. The cap that holds the valve in. This would be the valve stem. This is the felt of the valve. This determines the opening and closing diameters, primarily the opening and closing of the distance of the valve will travel. The stem is screwed in there. Allow me. Like that. Okay. Spring. And you can see the guide. And there's the guide going up and down. Okay. So we will put that back together. So this is the piston, spring, valve guide, stem. You're always going to need a felt, cap, and the button. And now let me show you briefly how we put this back in. Now this is kind of critical. Listen closely and you will hear when the valve is in the proper place. Turning, turning, turning. Hopefully you heard that. That's when you know that the guide is in the proper place with respect to proper opening and closing of the valve. I'll do that again. Turning, turning, and there it is. And now the valve is properly aligned. So what we would do here is, because the piston is a little bit different design than the rotor, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there's plenty of piston oil, not rotor oil. Rotor oil is a different viscosity. It's a little bit thicker. Piston oil is much thinner, and you're going to want to make sure that there's oil on this surface right here. So they help with the clearances there. So you're going to oil right in here, and then you're going to turn, and that's going to break free any dirt that might be in there. Keep turning, keep turning, keep turning, keep turning, and all of a sudden, now listen for it, and there it is. And now your oil is properly lubricating. Your piston is happy. It's going to go up and down, and if you're really interested, you can take the second slide off. It's right here. Here's your second slide. And you can see the piston opening and closing. If you don't see that, that means that your valve guide is improperly inserted, or your valve is improperly inserted with respect to the valve guide. So what you would do then is you pull the piston out, turn it again, make sure you hear that click, and then you are good to go, just like that. So that's pistons, rotors, the world of conical instruments, the world of cylindrical instruments, and proper lubrication. I highly, highly recommend using synthetics because they don't break down. Once again, this is Mr. Kashnik, and we're discussing basic brass maintenance techniques. Valves are your friend, proper lubrication. Simple stuff, make sure you use your synthetics. Oil is your friend. It will always keep your valves working. Valves break down and don't work because they haven't been lubricated properly. Have any questions? Feel free to check in with me. Once again, good to see all of you, and stay safe. Talk to you soon. Conical, cylindrical.